Yeah, I think a
Yeah.
lot of times too, at least in my experience, like I took certain classes and I was studying certain topics, like for example, mathematical induction when I first learned that, like the inequality proofs. I remember
Hmm.
learning that in pre-calc, and I remember studying it for hours every night, and I never understood it. I just gave up, and then it wasn't until like a year later that I finally got it. So I think sometimes when people don't understand, I think they just need time.
Yeah.
Sometimes time just makes you stronger. You learn more math, and so it makes it easier to learn new math. Same thing with engineering. You think?
Same
Do you
thing.
feel like?
Exactly same thing. So one of the strategies that I used, this is really good point. I think this is going to help a lot of different students out there. So I remember this same class that I failed first exam, I came to the professor and I was like, "Hey, I'm struggling. This is very hard. What do I do?" And his advice was find someone that is struggling more than you. And I know this is gonna sound iffy, but um, teach them, right? Become their teacher.
Wow.
So when you teach someone, you typically learn double because you have to explain things to them and you have to figure out creative ways to explain it to them. And yeah, I mean, you don't have to, find someone that's worse than you, but find someone that's willing to be taught in a way that you get to be at the spotlight, you get to find ways to be creative with your explanations, right? So good study groups, good people to study with, and that are willing to just share knowledge without stepping into each other's toes and taking turns,
Mm-hmm.
right? I remember throughout university, I only had one friend that I could truly do that with, and we ended up sticking together the whole time
Wow.
because he would he had a very practical perspective and I had a very theoretical perspective. And when you put two and two together in engineering, it's just gold, you know?
Yeah.
So just
That's
study together.
really good point. I think
Yeah.
just to echo on, just to emphasize what you said, a lot of times students will look at their teachers and they'll say like, "Oh my God, the teacher's so smart. How do you know so much?" And I'm just gonna be honest. It's not because the teacher is smart. I mean, maybe they are, but it's
Yes.
because they teach it. When you go in there every day and you teach, I'll just use calculus as an example. You teach Calc 1 semester after semester, like you just know it cold. You become a monster. Like it just
Yes.
becomes so. It's like breathing. I used to tell
Yes.
my students like, you need to get so good that it's just like breathing. Like you can just like
Hmm.
integrate. You can just like, and you get that way by teaching. So that's interesting
Yes.
that you got that advice from your professor. That's awesome. So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, it
So
was
good.
early on. It was early on in my engineering schooling. So that really made a huge difference. So every time that I would look for friends to study with, if they were teachable, if they were willing to be teachable, that meant I could study with them. But if they weren't teachable, they were set in their own ways, they weren't willing to compromise and collaborate, I would say, "Hey, I'm busy. I've got other stuff going on," and I would just do it on my own until I found, this friend, and we just hit it off and worked well together for a long, long time. So for those of you out there that are in the program or starting the program or maybe looking into getting a new major, I think this is golden advice, right?